That's two, three. Pussy.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
Get that head up and sit up. Get the legs down right now. Now smash the kick. Smash 10. Feel it light, feel it light. That's good. Get that spacing down. Rush it out, get it down now. Lengthen it out. Lengthen out with length to the lay back. Don't let it die. Get it buried. Sit up into your chest. Into your chest over the left. Get it up. Arch it up. Arch it up. And get those shoulders back. Get those arms on, Tony. Don't hesitate at the catch. Reach out and get that lay back. Reach out and through. Get the light.
There aren't any timeouts as in football. There aren't any 20-second bursts of energy and then sitting back, you know, thinking about the next play. There are no freeze substitutions. It's just each man totally blending together, totally sacrificing. They have gotten far greater fatigue out of an hour and 15-minute workout in rowing than they have in a 3-hour workout in football. And when we row a 6-minute race, they're totally spent. They lose up anywhere, in 6 minutes, they'll lose from 6 to 8 pounds of liquid body weight. Their heartbeats will be going around anywhere from 150 to 180 beats per minute once they're up into a maximum effort. You know, people have a visual picture of the very rich paddling around in a boat and looking cute. It's not an easy sport as far as technique. It's not an easy sport physically.
The coach is Dennis Camrad from Florida Technological University in Orlando. He was an oarsman at Rollins College under the father of Southern rowing, the late U.T. Bradley. In 1964, he began the rowing program at a local high school, and in 3 years took them to a ranking of 3rd in the nation. In 1970, he began the rowing program at Florida Technological University, and in 1974, his men won the national championship in the 4-oared shell. In 1975, they won the state championship in the 8-oared shell, ranked 2nd in the South and 7th in the nation. Dennis Camrad is in love with America's oldest intercollegiate sport.
It isn't just sitting in a rowboat, as many of you have done, in a stationary seated type boat and pulling a very small oar. The oars are locked into a lock. The oars are very large implements. The oars that we row are 12 feet 6 inches long, weigh approximately 9 pounds. They're light in weight, but pull an enormous amount of water. And I believe in each time that we grab a hold of the water, which is known as the catch, the entry into the water, we're exerting upwards of 250 pounds of pressure. It would be just like somebody lifting anywhere from 160 to 260 pounds of weight off the ground with their legs, arms, and shoulders. And they have to do this approximately 160 times in a race, so they have to do it efficiently. So they have to get the oar turned properly as they're entering the water at right angles with the water. And they have to do this with their hand properly turned and the wrist properly flattened so that their wrist is flat, their arm is properly extended, and they've rolled properly forward into their legs so that when they exert the pressure, they're going to move the boat. And they're moving the boat with their shoulders, with their arms, with their back, with their stomach, and with their legs, all at approximately the same time. That's the catch, the entry. Now, if they don't turn the oar properly, if they don't square the blade properly, the blade might slice in very deeply. The oar handle will come up and hit them in the chin or hit them in the chest. It could literally catapult them out of the boat. That's known as a crab. That would be a disastrous crab. Generally, a fellow might just get knocked down, or it might just drag the boat down to his side. But by making that mistake, it could determine or disrupt the balance of the whole boat. So placing the oar properly in the water and keeping that proper angle all the way through the stroke is of paramount importance. From the catch all the way through the body of the stroke to the finish of the stroke, that oar has to remain at right angles with the water. If they change the angle, it's going to change the force of the water. They're not going to be pulling as much water, and the boat's going to lose its balance. Timing is important. All 8 men have to place that oar in the water, have to exert the pressure at the same time, and have to go through the water and get out of the water at exactly the same time. A boat actually has the sound in a catch. It has a certain sound of the oars hitting the water at the same time and exerting pressure on the lock at the same time. But they have to be very cautious about that. The seats are on 28-inch tracks rolling up into the work. So they're really driving that boat with their legs. The legs are the strongest part of their body, and then the back. And they're getting an enormous amount of power out of their legs when they just drive and lift into that thing. But the only person that I feel that can beat you in many cases is yourself. You've got to conquer yourself as much as in track or in swimming, where it's, except in track and in swimming, it's an individual sport for individuals, even in the relay. In crew, it's 8 individuals conquering themselves in unison. Each man has to conquer himself, but do it as closely as possible the same as every other individual in that boat. And the coxswain has to aid them in that going through the pain threshold and driving them and correcting them and teaching them, even during the race itself. It's extremely evident when all these men are working together. They're pulling the oars and the puddles are going by. Each man can tell those puddles are just like a little bit of handwriting right there. Who did the job?
The shell itself must be as fine-tuned as the oarsman. The finish must be smooth to cut down friction, and the boat must be light in weight. A new 8-man shell costs $5,000.
The shell is extremely thin. I think it's only about 1/8 of an inch thick. And if we don't handle the shells properly, we can break them. Even in carrying them, if we don't balance the weight properly, it can split the skin surface of the shell. When we're getting into them, if we place our foot in an improper place, we can go right through the bottom of the shell. These shells are 60 feet long, but they only weigh about 280 pounds, and they're capable of carrying upwards to 1,200 to 1,600 pounds in the boat, depending on the size of the men sitting in the boat. There are 9 people sitting in an 8.
Many people in the South have never even seen a racing shell, and yet in the North, rowing is an old, well-established sport. Thomas Akins painted these oarsmen in the 1870s on the Schuylkill River in Philadelphia. That long ago, boat builders had already learned that a racing shell must be as sleek as a knife in the water. Philadelphia is still a great center for rowing. This is Boathouse Row on the Schuylkill River today. Private rowing clubs like Vesper send crews to the Olympics. And next door is the University of Pennsylvania Boathouse. The Florida Tech crew won the national championship using a boat borrowed from Penn. Here's Florida Tech's boathouse by way of contrast. That row of picnic tables behind Dennis and Kimberly Camrad. In the South, rowing is a much newer, less established sport. And it might not exist in the South at all if it weren't for this man, the late U.T. Bradley, crew coach at Rollins College for 33 years. There wasn't any intercollegiate rowing anywhere in the South when Bradley came to Rollins in 1933. He came as a history professor, but he rowed for Navy and coached at a private school in the North. And, like Camrad years later, he couldn't get it out of his blood. Less than a year after Brad arrived, Rollins had a rowing team. And long before he retired in 1965, he was known nationally as the father of Southern rowing, the only small college coach ever to be admitted to the Rowing Hall of Fame. In 1936, Brad put together the first intercollegiate rowing regatta in the South, Rollins over Washington and Lee by a deck length. And later that year, his men scored their first victory over one of the strong northern schools. They drove all the way to New York City with their boat and beat Manhattan College on the Harlem River. It was the first time any Southern crew had ever beaten a Northern team. And the victory was a breakthrough in another unexpected way. 2 weeks after the race, Manhattan College and the country learned the awful secret in Walter Winchell's column. The man in the coxswain seat of the Rollins boat was not a man. It was a girl in disguise. Manhattan beaten by a girl. Bradley was probably the first coach ever to use a girl as coxswain on a men's crew in a major race. Northern schools are still reluctant to put in girls as coxswains because there's such a strong all-male tradition there. Southern crews use them a lot, simply because they're lighter and because Bradley led the way.